and speaking of dusty places, we've got a really dusty place in Mars. We just sent, of course, the Perseverance rover there. And you also see in this image the Ingenuity helicopter. But first, let's start with a little Perseverance news. The Perseverance rover has an experiment on board called MOXIE. And what I love the name MOXIE for this. And what it's making is oxygen on Mars. It's actually the Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment on the rover. And it takes CO2, breathes it in, and breathes out oxygen. Kind of like a plant does, except it's that gold box doing it. Now, indeed, it did make oxygen on the surface of Mars. It made 5.37 grams total over the period of about an hour. You might think that that's not much. Well, that's enough to keep you alive for about 10 minutes. Okay, it made it in an hour. I get that. So these numbers aren't good if you were really trying to breathe that. But the idea is you could bring a bigger one. This is, again, another one of those proof of concept experiments where they're showing, yeah, this works. We can actually convert it into oxygen and have something we could use to breathe and to, you know, again, you need oxygen if you're going to send people to Mars. So this experiment, another big success for Perseverance already. Now, what about that helicopter, Ingenuity? Now, right here, take a look at this. This, I believe, actually is the third flight. Second flight, it went up again a little higher, came down successful. Here you see the blade spinning over on the left-hand side of the image, and there it goes up into the sky. And then it's going to do a little tilt, and off she goes. And this makes a great background for Zoom, by the way. I'm not using it tonight because it's very distracting just to have a helicopter flying back and forth through one's head. But it's pretty easily editable where you can remove the JPL or NASA meatball at the end. And then it just loops. The helicopter's going to come back here in a second. That is not a still. This is still a video. Okay, it's not a still. It is a video that we're looking at. There's not much atmosphere on Mars. It's only about 1% of Earth's. So the fact that we're able to fly a helicopter, it uses blades a lot like a real helicopter where they turn the blades. They can do them either with the rotation, where they can do them at certain phases of it, or they can turn them all at once and give it more pitch. That's actually how it takes off, is by pitching those. They give it a surge of energy, it flies up into the air quickly, and then they can control and adjust the direction by pitching them different as the blades move around in the circle. So amazing that it flies like a real helicopter. This isn't like other things. Now, it gets shots to the ground as it flies around as well. There's its own shadow. Now, the blades look like they are frozen, but they're really not. It's just that the camera speed matches the speed of the blades as they spin around. So here's another shot of it, a longer one, and you'll notice the blades change direction ever so slightly as this video progresses. This is from the third flight, I believe, or maybe this is the fourth flight. Let me look over here, make sure I'm getting these straight. Anyway, it was a longer one, and you can tell that as the blades spin at this 2537 revolutions per minute, this camera is making, it makes basically 20 full rotations in between each image. So as we're seeing that ground pass below, and right now it looks like it only has one set of blades, but looks like a little dragonfly flying over Mars. We all quite like that. But there is a capability that has been unveiled here that a lot of folks didn't think about, but it's come live right now to All Space Considered and Griffith Observatory. And right here, we're going to explore it. We have the Mars traffic report. That's right. Every 10 Mars minutes now, with the eye in the sky, the Ingenuity Mars helicopter, we are able to pay attention and figure out what's up there. Let's check it out.
Well, it's 5 past the hour. Time to check traffic for your morning commute, and it looks like a real mess out in West Crater. Let's go to Ingenuity Chopper 1 for a live report.
Okay, here's the trouble, and it's a real mess. We got a rover that tried to get into some of the boulders out of the sulfate contact turnoff. And it looks like maybe a little excess speed. Oh boy, it tipped itself over right onto its side. We might have a plutonium fuel spill to deal with. This is definitely going to take some time to clear. In the meantime, I'd suggest you consider taking alternate routes if you're headed up onto the East Mesa. Back to you in the studio.
Well, things are looking interesting in Jezero Crater there. We'll have to check back on that wreck and find out what happened. Anyway, in all seriousness, of course, we're just joking that there was no wreck. Perseverance is doing just fine. There's not a problem. So don't
And
worry.
not a fuel spill.
No fuel spill.
No.
In fact, the fuel is quite safe. The plutonium is stored in a way that they believe that it could undergo a disaster upon launch, and those canisters would still be sealed and would be safe. They test them to those sorts of energies. They crash them. Well, they don't put plutonium in and crash them. They crash them with other substances and make sure they don't crack open. So they are very, very safe, but we thought it was a funny joke. But Ingenuity is getting shots from the air, and you can see those rover tracks down there. So it made us laugh to think, indeed, the rover is picking up signs that the helicopter's picking up signs that there's a rover down there. And in this next image, again, you'll see more rover tracks. And in this next image, if you look carefully, you see a rover right over there in the top left corner. Let's zoom in on this for you. So we thought it was quite funny. We had made up that joke about the rover crash and seeing it, and then JPL gave us this image with the rover up there. No, it's not on its side. It's doing just fine. Percy's doing well. Well, there's the landing site. This is about 80 meters away where the rover was observing these helicopter flights and the helicopter observing the rover. There's the zooming in on it. It's great to see Percy there hanging out, looking at the helicopters looking at Percy. So very fun.
Fantastic.
Now, these flights are not just for fun. They're, of course, measuring how well they can control a helicopter in that 1% atmosphere. Turns out this is the horizontal positioning, sort of left, right, and front, back. And notice it's mostly good to under 1/10 of a meter. So that's, about that far, 6 inches or so, give or take. Let's take a look at how the power is applied to it. So this is the rotor speed, essentially, the amount of watts they're putting to those the electric motor that turns the blades. So they spin them up, and then boom, you get takeoff, and then it can hover. And you notice they're not having to change the energy much at all. And that's the plan. Again, they change how the helicopter flies by changing the pitch of the blades. So this is exactly what they would hope to see during a flight, that it would be constant energy, more or less, no drops due to the battery or anything like that. Also, shots from the ground. Let me get to the next slide here. Shots from the ground, or of the ground from the helicopter. This is shortly after taking off, and they were thinking they might see a lot more dust than they did. And indeed, this is not very dusty at all, which is great for the helicopter because it's solar powered. It's not plutonium powered. It needs to recharge its batteries every day, and they are recharging. It's going well. In fact, it's going much better than they had hoped. Everything's progressing wonderfully. There is a little dust, however. This was an image, or rather a movie they took, and they enhanced it greatly, did some edge detection, and right there you see that dust kick up and get blown by the Martian wind. There is a little Martian wind that's there, but this is not much dust at all compared to a big dust storm on Mars. Now, this next flight, this was flight number 4. They got audio. Well, Percy, got audio of Ingenuity flying. Now, I don't hear a whole lot. Maybe it's because my ears are not so good. I'm going to be quiet here and let you listen to this. Turn up the sound. You can get this on the NASA website as well if you want to check it out on your own. But listen up. It turns out, folks, that subwoofers help. The noise is very low. I'm playing it through my stereo that has a subwoofer, and now I can hear it. Very low rumble. Now, the helicopter's coming back, everybody. Don't worry. We're not waiting around for nothing.
Didn't get stuck in a tree.
Yeah.
There she is.
Yeah, there is a hum in there. Anyway, now it'll go away as she lands.
Fantastic.
Yeah, anyhow, impressive. I never thought I'd be hearing sounds from Mars. That atmosphere is so thin. It's shocking we're hearing it. Now, folks have made recordings of various music pieces where they pass them through computers, where they change the sound as they would expect it to be changed based upon the density and the composition of the various atmospheres. So go Google that and check it out. Maybe we'll bring that to you again. I think we did it once at an All Space Considered years ago. Anyway, to summarize and finish up this section here, on the right-hand side of this image is the third flight. On the left-hand side is the fourth flight. And the gray stuff you're seeing is the ground imagery that was taken during those flights that you can see. The first short bit we showed is the one on the right-hand side, and then the longer bit we showed with the blades where they were matching is the left-hand fourth flight. Now, they've got a fifth flight planned. This is very exciting. This is going to be the landing spot for the fifth flight. It's different. They're flying to a new location and they're going to land. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, notice Perseverance, of course, has wheels. So Percy's going to start rolling. They're not waiting around. They've got science to do. Well, if the helicopter wants to keep flying, they need to follow where the rover's going. They now have a plan, and they're flying their helicopter to keep up with the rover so they can keep doing more flights and having more fun. So I love it. I love this exploration. It's groundbreaking. And now they're into their next phase of the mission where they can kind of start being a little bit useful to the rover. And they're starting to get to be a little bit of doing some scouting almost. So a lot of fun, pushing it further and further. And now we wait to hear about things like Watson and Sherlock and wait to hear how results of those are going. I read on Twitter that so far they're getting results and they're working, but they haven't detected anything that makes them say bingo, that this is great. So